Hello and welcome to episode 20 of When We Are Healed. I have a wonderful guest for you today. And if you've ever felt stuck in a job that you're doing mostly for the money, or if you've ever felt lost or frustrated that you don't know what you want to do with your life, I think you might find today's interview very relatable and inspiring. So please welcome our guest, my dear friend, Nicole Witt. Nicole is a spiritual teacher, mentor, and coach who became an ordained ministerial counselor through Pathways of Light after a 30-year corporate career. Using the principles and practices of A Course in Miracles, she helps women rewrite the story of their lives so that they can truly embody a life they love. In this episode, Nicole shares about how she spent a lifetime searching for her purpose and passion, and how everything started to shift when she discovered A Course in Miracles and began to connect to her inner wisdom. So I first met Nicole about 7-8 years ago through my teacher Jennifer Hadley's community. And at the time, we were both relatively new to really applying this work of A Course in Miracles to our lives. And we were supporting each other through the challenges that she talks about in the episode. So I'm so happy and excited that she's now lighting the way for others as a teacher and coach. She really is a testament to the miracles that unfolds when you begin to observe your own thoughts and make a commitment to see your life differently. As we become aware of the limiting stories that we've been telling ourselves and consciously choose happiness over suffering, love over fear, the light inside of us then starts to naturally shine and guide our way. So let's dive into our conversation with Nicole Witt. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So excited.
Yay! So I thought we could get started with your backstory of where you were in your journey before your transformation and your experience in the corporate world and what that was like for you and how things began to shift. So yeah, let's start
Yeah.
there.
Well, yeah. I mean, growing up, I really had no spiritual connection, education, anything like that. It wasn't part of my existence. Um, and so I always felt like I didn't know what it was I was supposed to be doing. And I didn't know, um, even like as a kid, I felt jealous of the other kids would be like, oh, I want to be a veterinarian or I want to be a doc. Like they have these ideas of what they wanted to be. And I was like, I have really no clue. And I always felt like I was missing something. Like I had no idea what it was. I, graduated high school. I went to college, and college was really like, I don't know why I'm here, other than to have this experience of going to college, but I wasn't looking, still had no direction as to what I wanted to do. And and so I kind of just was going through life like, what can I do to be safe? And what can I do? I had this idea that at some point I was just going to have this time where I was going to figure it out. And so right after college, like 2 weeks after college, I got the first job I could find and moved in with my then boyfriend, and was just okay. Like I just was concentrating on like getting a job and getting married, honestly, because I just couldn't, like couldn't think of anything else to do. Um, so I got a job, and job was like 2 weeks out of college, and it's the one that I ended up working with at for over 31 years. And it was just like really, the whole time I felt like I'm stuck there. And I felt like I didn't know what else I was supposed to do. I had no drive, no motivation. I tried a whole bunch of different things. I'd always be searching for other things, but I'd take some classes in it and then I'd say, oh, this isn't for me. Or I can't see myself doing it. And it was probably like 20 different things that I was going to be that I never did, that I never followed through with, right? And if somebody asked me, like, what do you like to do for fun, or what are your hobbies? Um, I had no idea. Like, I couldn't think of anything, and I remember like sometimes we have to fill out applications or something where you have to like list your hobbies or what do you like to do outside of work, and like having like putting down working out because that's the only thing I could think of that I did other than work and, TV and take care of my child or whatever. And I didn't like it. I didn't love working out. It wasn't a hobby. It was something I felt I had to do, but that was like the only thing I could come up with because I just had no idea who I was, who I was in relation to myself. Like, I think and I'm still discovering that so much of my persona that I made was in relation to other people. Like, what will other people like? What will other people be okay with? What do they want me to, how do they want me to react? Or even just trying to figure that out in my mind all the time of how can I make it through life so that everybody is happy and I can just be at this place and then I can secretly be desperate inside. Like I can secretly be desperate, like I'm missing something. I don't like I have no idea. But if I can hold it all together on the outside, then at least I've got that. And really leaning into this idea that I can be like the responsible one and I can like those are things I know I can do. I can be responsible, I can show up on time. And so like really leaning into that's who I am and knowing that that's not really like a personality. I mean, it's not like who you are. Or being able to show up on time and be responsible are like character traits. They're not like you build your personality on, um and just feeling so fake about it and feeling when I was doing all my searching all the time, trying to find that thing. And a lot of those programs, they would have, you'd send out these questionnaires to your friends and family, like, what are the qualities you see in me? And they're supposed to answer all these things back. And I would always get like, oh, about like your response. I always know that you're going to get it done and you're responsible. And I would cringe. I would hate it when I would get those things back because I was like, I know that that's not me. I'm more than that. But that's all that I was putting out there. So that's all that people could see.
Oh, so I could relate to so much of what you're sharing about that persona being created from what other people want or what we think other people want from us. Yeah. So when did the turning point arrive for you? Was there a catalyst? Was there some event or something that led up to a moment where something shifted for you?
Well, I think it's like it started just in a kind of curiosity or an opening to. I remember my son was probably like a year old, somewhere in that range, and I was watching the Grammy Awards because I always used to love to watch all the award shows, especially the Grammy Awards. And a lot of the times the winners would get up and they thank God or they thank Jesus and in the past I would always just like roll my eyes and be like, why do they have to do that? Like I'd just be super annoyed with it. And this one time somebody I don't remember who it was that got up there, but they were thanking God um and I just had this thought like, like here's all these people who are the top of they're accomplishing these things and winning the awards and just really living their purpose, obviously doing they have this talent and they're all thanking God. And I was just like, huh, I wonder if there's something to that. And that was kind of like, I feel like the first moment that like that little crack opened up in my mind, and the little bit of light first got through, because it was the first time that I really started to wonder, um if that all is real, if it all, because before then it was just like, I was grew up with the idea that religion and God were like bad, that it's is a way for people not to take responsibility, which is so funny now because it's exactly the opposite. But at the time, it was like, people who believed in God or whatever, because they don't want to take responsibility for their life. So it was just like, we're better than that kind of attitude growing up. And so when I had that thought and I opened up to it, that it just like a whole bunch of, things started happening more and more. And which ended up with my first trying to connect with God, was through in Al Anon. And I really didn't want to use the word God at all. Um, but I found myself trying to come up with this concept of the higher power. And it was like, like a paragraph. And I was just like, why didn't I just use the word God? I know what I mean. And it's easier. And so once I kind of accepted that, and then of course miracles came along in my life, and that was another huge step, because I I was still in this job that I had been at. I don't remember how long it had been at that point, but the same job that I had gotten right out of college, and I was miserable. I hated it. I thought, um, it was just boring, and I could do so much more. And um, so Marianne Williamson had come to town to LA, and was when she had published her book, The Law of Divine Compensation. And I didn't really know anything about the course, but divine compensation sounded really good. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this weekend seminar that she was giving. And I don't know if this is true, but I was not aware of any time during that whole seminar that she ever spoke like about Jesus or anything really about where the course came from, what was in the course. So I get home and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll order this Course in Miracles. And it arrives and I look at it and I'm like, well, who wrote this? Like, it doesn't say. And then I Googled it. And then I was like, oh, like this is a big leap. And I wouldn't have ordered it if I had known the backstory. And so, but then once I started reading it, I was just like, oh, okay, this is something. Um, and so, yeah, it just kind of really developed from there.
Yeah. Can you share with the listeners, for the listeners who don't know, like what's the backstory of A Course in Miracles?
So, the backstory is a channeled work, channeled by a woman named Helen Schuckman, and the she, called it the voice, but the voice identifies itself as Jesus, and it's very Christian language. Like, it's him with a capital H, and it's God and Holy Spirit, and it's all Christian language, which I had no um, experience with whatsoever. And I was put off with at the beginning, but um, it's my feeling towards it is, and even back then, which I really didn't even know the course, but I just felt like if there's a I was so drawn to it that if there's an issue with the language, that I just needed to get over it. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. I was sucked in from the moment I started reading it.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
is it about the course that moved you and touched you in that way, that you were willing to get over that language barrier that so many of us experience with the course, with the resistance to the Christian terminologies
Yeah.
and everything?
I think it was it just really spoke to what I had thought about growing up. Like, I remember like being I don't know, like 4 or 5, and like singing row, row, row your boat, and thinking, oh, and life's but a dream. And like, yeah, like it is. Like this, it's right there. Like we've been told our whole entire lives in row, row, row your boat from as long as when we were little. And I just remember like always feeling that, and always feeling like I want to go home. I want to, even when I was at my house or whatever, it was like I just this constant feeling of I want to go home. And when I started reading the course, it was like, okay, this is why I felt like that. Um, because all of these things that I were thought that I knew somehow, but couldn't really explain, here they were explained.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about the row, row, row your boat song.
Yeah.
It does say it, doesn't it? Life is but a
Yeah.
dream. Ah, wow. Okay. So how did A Course in Miracles shift things for you in your life and your relationship to yourself and to spirit slash God?
Yeah. It this idea about being able to be like, I'm not a victim. I think that was because I always felt victim, and especially even though I didn't have a relationship with God before this, right? But I would still, the only relationship I had with God was when I would still think like, why is God doing this to me? Um, you know, and that was my only relationship to God, is like, why is God doing this to me? So to when I was really like, oh, this, I'm doing this to myself, and I can change this, and um and I'm not alone, that there is a guide inside of me. And that's what like the course really felt like, somebody holding your hand and going through it. And several years into the course, when I was going through my ordination from Pathways of Light to become minister for Course in Miracles, um, I had an experience where like Jesus literally came in my mind and was like, pick me, I'm your guide, we're doing this. And so that really said, because before then, like Jesus was the voice of the course, but I didn't really know how to use his help really before then. And so that kind of sent off this really like this personal relationship where it felt like, yeah, I have someone here with me, in me, that it knows it's possible and telling me it's possible and will show me how to do it. And here it is, like in this book, there's not only this text that has all these wonderful processes and of how to make ourselves happy, basically, but then there's all 365 other like there, it's just a constant remembering of the truth, so that when I forget, I get to come back.
Mm, thank
Mm.
you. So I found when I first discovered A Course in Miracles, well, for those of you who don't know, it's a very dense, thick, big blue book, as it is also known as. Almost looks like a dictionary, really thin papers, like dictionaries. And I think the bar is pretty high for any one of us to self-study it, even though it is designed and written as a self-study course. And again, the language is written in this Shakespearean, very poetic, very beautiful, but kind of puzzling to like someone living in 2025. And so how did you go about quote unquote studying A Course in Miracles? Was it on your own at first, or were there any resources that helped you on your journey?
Well, I first tried doing it on my own, um, maybe for like a couple of months. I think I started reading the text, and things started shifting, but not in a good way. Like and so at that point I was like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I'm giving up. Um, so I kind of left it alone for a few months. And then I uh, saw a Facebook post for Lisa Natoli 40-day program. And I did that. And that was really this like once I started doing that, and because she explained, I had her explanations for thing and it just made so much sense. And so then I did all of her stuff. Yeah, so I've had like a lot of community. So at first I was in Lisa Natoli's community, and then I went to Jennifer Hadley's. And so it's really helped a lot to have people that you can just talk about it, and then to have like a teacher's interpretation. And even if I came up with my own interpretation, um, it was nice to have a place to start, you know, and then see what resonated with me.
Yeah, I had the same experience of I tried to do it on my own for the longest time. And once I found the right teachers and communities that I resonated with, things were just happen
Yeah.
exponentially more quickly and deeply. So yeah, communities and teachers are so valuable on this path. I want to rewind a little bit and ask you about so so when you discovered through A Course in Miracles that there is a guide inside of you that you can always turn to, what was the process like for you of developing that relationship with that guidance inside of you?
Yeah. Well, at first, I couldn't identify, wasn't really sure what this voice was, and it took a long time I kept having this thought of, I had this experience many, many, many years earlier where I had gone to doctor's appointment, dermatologist appointment, and met the doctor. She came into the room or whatever, and I have this thought, oh, she looks different. She looks really nice. Say something to her. And I didn't. And as the appointment went on, I'm like, now I can't send. It's been too long. It'll be weird now if I just, how that goes. And but it stuck with me for years and years and years for some reason. Like, why didn't I say something? And so when I was started studying the course and was like, what is this voice? Like, what is it? And all of a sudden I have this realization, oh, that was that voice in that instance. Like that was an opportunity to extend love. Um, and I didn't take it, whatever, because sometimes I don't even still. Like Holy Spirit told me to get a napkin with my smoothie today, and I walked out without one. I don't need a napkin. And then I did. So, but so that was like the first thing to recognize, oh, okay, that was the voice. That was the voice that I'm listening for. That was in that context, like the everyday, help me in my everyday life voice that comes in. And like I said, oh, you might want a napkin now, or you might like just that little voice all the time, and learning to listen to that. But then there was also like this deeper knowing, like this deeper voice that took longer to be able to, because it was about like getting still, and it was about asking, like handing over a situation and then seeing it differently. So it's not so much like a voice, but then it's just like this up, like all of a sudden it's in light, and now I can see a way that I couldn't see before. um and so it comes that way too. It's just like a knowing or a change or the miracle, and not necessarily a voice. Sometimes it's also just like a deep trust, that I know everything's going to be okay, even if I can't explain why. um Again, before I even knew what this was, when my son was born, and they told me I was in the hospital with him for like 2 months before I gave birth, and everybody was telling me they were expecting that he was going to have to be in the NICU, and then I would go home, and it would be a big process. And so the night before they were to induce labor, my husband at the time, we were packing up my room. I had been there for like 2 months, and now I'm going to move to postpartum. And the doctors and the nurses are like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to come back here because baby's going to be in the NICU and we won't move you out of this room without the baby. So you're going to, and I was just like, no, like that's not, I just knew for some reason that that wasn't happening, that everything was going to be okay. And it wasn't until very recently that I realized, like, oh, like that was spirit talking to me. That calm reassurance, like, no, like I know what's going to happen and it's not going to be that. Um, so it's as I've gotten a better relationship, I've also been able to like look back and say, like, oh yeah, there was there and there and there, even though I didn't have words for it at the time.
I love that example because it speaks to, oftentimes we can have all these stories about how, God was never there for me, or, I can't hear Spirit's voice. I get that one a lot. But if we were to really like become still and look back on our life, there are those moments of inexplicable clarity or strength
Yeah.
or joy that you experienced, and you realize, oh my God, that was it. That was also that, and it was there.
Yeah.
It was there throughout your life. You just didn't have words for it or didn't. Yeah. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I love that. Looking back on your past.
Yeah. Cause then now going forward, like now I know when I have that feeling that like this is the right decision, or I just can recognize that feeling now that I've like gone back in the past and saying, oh yeah, that was spirit. So now when it's there, it's like, okay, I know, like this is the right decision because I'm having that feeling again.
Yeah. And how old is your son now?
He is going to be 26 the end of the
26.
month. Yeah.
Okay. Did your transformation in doing this work, how did it shift your relationship with your family, your son and your husband?
I'm still pretty much a lone wolf, a lone wolf in my family, with it as far as uh yeah, like I'll talk to my husband a little bit about it, but he doesn't do the course. Um, he, he he'll sometimes it makes me laugh because uh call something course in miracles. Like somebody will say something, it's like, oh, they must be a course student because and I'm like, well, maybe not, but like he'll recognize things just from me talking. But um yeah, like I and my family of origin, like they're learning to, like, my mom will tell me like, oh, I watch your videos, or and I'm getting little things, or but yeah, like I'm still the only one in the spiritual pool, I guess, outly in my family. So but it still helps with my relationships because the course is based upon relationships, like how are you relating to other people, and what are what am I seeing in them that's really about me. Yeah, so it has helped me be more mindful again, and being like, they're not doing this to me. Like I have a big role in how I'm perceiving this situation, and anxiety with my family or whatever, like knowing that it's about me and what I need to heal, instead of being the victim, has really made a big difference.
Yeah. Is there an example that you can think of some conflict or a difficult situation that arose in your relationships that then shifted through your willingness and forgiveness, as A Course in Miracles teaches it?
Well, I you have a lot of stories that I made up as a child about what things meant. Um, and being able to see those stories now and let them go. So, like my parents, so like one of the examples that I have of making us like this big story out of when I was in kindergarten, um, I had to repeat kindergarten for some reason, whatever. They didn't think I was ready to move on. And so I remember as a child that my parents asked me like if you do this, if you go to kindergarten again, we'll get you this play kitchen. Like, I really wanted one of those plastic play kitchens. And we'll do that. You'll get that if you, well, I never got it. And so, like, and so I internalized that, just this whole idea of this story. Okay, people don't do what they say they're going to do, or people will promise you something to get you to manipulate you, but then they don't follow through. Um, and so just even like internalizing those stories and then bringing them out, like that's my view of the world now. Like nobody is to be trusted. Everybody's just trying to get what they can, and then they're not going to, do what they say. And letting those stories go, seeing where they came from, constantly giving those stories over to spirit when they come up, and then forgiving my parents for that. Like, who knows why I didn't get, I have no idea why I didn't, if I mentioned it to them now, they'd probably be like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We don't remember that at all. But yeah, and just a lot of the stories that I had about, my mother, again, like the ideas she gave me about myself, or the stories that I had made up based upon what she said. And for a long time, I was like, yeah, my mom screwed me up. Like, it's all her fault. Like, she told me this and she told me that. And that's why I am the way that I am. But now through this process, I was like, no, that's the meaning I made of it. I could have chosen differently. I didn't, because this was my path. And these were the stories that I needed to heal. But it's kind of let like that resentment, that thinking they should have done a better job, or I would be better if they had done a better job. And um yeah, so it's getting there. I still have a lot of, family things. And but it's even now, it's getting to be more of a place where like I'm noticing the reactions that I didn't even know that I was still having, or I'm willing to say, you know what, I was doing a lot of people pleasing with my parents before. I mean, like, I don't need to do that. And it's okay. Like, I can say what I want to do, what feels better for me, instead of what I think they want from me. And then being a nervous wreck the whole time, or not being in a good mood, and just not enjoying the process. Again, like coming back to what I said earlier about this whole idea of like living my life in kind of like in this box of how do I think that other people want me to be? Because it's not even what they said they want me to be, it's what I'm making up the story about what they want me to be, and then going from that. So just kind of clearing all that out, and starting to go from who I really am, and just being me, and not trying to mold myself, I think is helping all my relationships.
Thank you. I think so many of us can relate to that. I forgot who said it, but something along the lines of if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family or your
Yeah.
parents. I forgot which it was. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's an ongoing work for many of us. So I'm going to take a breath. Hmm. So, Nicole, I love that you brought up stories because one of the things that you wrote in your website is that you're helping women tell a new story.
Right.
And there's something that's very like sparkly and magical about the way you phrase that we can write and tell a new story about ourselves. How do you go about helping someone recognize the stories that they're telling themselves and to begin to release that in your work?
Yeah. I think a lot of times we don't, it takes a lot to recognize our own stories, because we're so trapped in them. And so, especially when we're in the frame of mind that we're believing the stories, they seem very real and they seem like fact. And um, but as a person on the outside that's listening, it's, we can see where the hang up is happening, like where like I say, like, the distrust, or you know, the I'm not worthy stories, or everyone's out to get me stories, or I don't have enough, I'm not enough. I mean, the stories that we have are pretty universal. I think most of us have the exact same stories, maybe just little variations. So they're, it's kind of like we all have our blind spots. When we're in them, we can't see them. So being able to have somebody that, can just maybe ask a few more questions and get to the point of it. Like, for me, one of them big one is like, okay, where have you felt this before? Like, do you remember the first time you felt this way? And go back to that child, because probably you were a small child when you first had these feelings, and these stories first came up when they first started to be developing in this world, and then we can go back and like hold that child, because that child that made this meaning that things aren't safe, is still there, and we just try to push it down and push it down and push it down because we don't want to deal with it. We don't know how to deal with it, and so the the child just gets more upset inside of us, and explodes at inopportune times because it's just trying to be heard and loved, which is what we all want. And so going through that process of even honoring that, like that birth of that story, like where did the story start, and how can we then put love and compassion on it, and then notice when it's coming into our existence now, like when it's coming into our life now. Because it's amazing, like once we start to identify these stories and these patterns, like all of a sudden I'll be have a conversation or be upset about something, or get in a fight with my husband about something, and then be like, oh yeah, there's that story again. Like I was automatically just acting from that story because they're so habitual. So then we can, as we become more aware of them, then we can afterwards say, oh yeah, that's what happened. We can do our forgiveness process. We can hand it over. And, pretty soon through the more forgiveness and the more awareness, they just don't even come anymore, or they come kind of like these little filament as kind of in the back of my mind. Like it's up there, like I can see, but like, I'm not really interested in picking it anymore. And it just kind of fades away.
I love that. I love that you brought up compassion because I think that's so key too. Of even though we're not our stories, even though these stories are limiting, and even though our intention is to release these stories, we have to meet the stories with love and honor it instead of judging it and making it wrong that we made up that story or that bought into that story or that we lived that story for decades. Um, and it really is about the surrender, isn't it? Um, that just like fully accepting that that's the story I was holding on to. And paradoxically, in the acceptance, the letting go happens.
Yeah, I know. As we think that we'll just push it down, like if we just push it down, it'll just eventually go away. It'll just, and that just doesn't work. Right? It just keeps coming back, and it's bigger and bigger. And so, in the actual allowing of like going really into that feeling that was there, and letting yourself cry and experience the feeling, um, and then it can move on, and then it can be, we then give it to spirit, and having that, the course says you don't have to make yourself ready to come to spirit. Like that, the whole point is that you come when you're a mess. Right? You come when you're on your knees and you're a mess and you don't know anything, and you're having all those feelings. And then so that release of the feelings and the working through them, that's kind of then when spirit can come in and say, okay, like how can we be more loving? How can we be more loving to that little child at the time that made that story? How can we be more loving to the other people who are involved in the story and what we made that mean about them? And then how can we be more loving even to ourselves now when those stories come up? Because I still react from my stories all the time. But it's, after that huge, like that emotional release of it, it's like, okay, it doesn't, I don't believe them anymore. Even though when I can observe myself reacting from them, I don't believe them. And I think that that's like the whole way out. That's when we stop believing them and we know that, okay, it's, it's not anybody outside of me. I'm replaying an old story.
I love that. This is
Mm.
reminding me of one of your offerings, the Healing Inner Child
Yes. Yeah.
program. Can you speak about that a little bit of like the process that you take your clients through in that healing that inner child over the course of 8 weeks?
Yeah. It's really this idea of meeting that inner child and giving them all the love and meeting with spirit. There's a meditation that happens with it that is, there's basically you, your inner child, and your higher self. And you're there, you introduce your higher self to your inner child, you let them, like, you observe them playing and whatever, however it comes. But this idea of bringing the Holy Spirit to the inner child for the healing. And I just recently did it myself again. Just instead of 8 weeks, I did it in 8 days. Kind of did like a crash course on it, and it was um, just this. I had this experience of joy in this meditation of like watching Holy Spirit and my inner little girl like playing and playing hide and go seek and just like having this fun that because like before that I'd always seen my inner child was always so sad, right? Because I always was all these stories and it was always so sad and it was a lot of tears, and now to bring it around where it was like this joy was just really incredible. And so it's really about like going back into those stories, like what am I believing, what is my inner child believing, where is she stuck, where does she feel unsafe, um, and how can we start to show her that she was loved and that she was held and that she was guided the whole entire time. um, and it really is, like I was mentioning earlier, like going backwards and seeing when spirit was there when I didn't even know. I had, like as I said before, like really, like there was no talk of God, there was no religion other than it being bad in when I was growing up. But I had one grandmother who kept like little Bible stories for me, and they were like secret, like, but I didn't remember that until literally like maybe a year ago, how I would go to her house and read these stories and Jesus was in these stories, and like how good I felt when I read them. And like now realizing like, oh, it was there the whole time. Like spirit was there the whole time taking care of me. And so it's just being able to see, yes, I was never deserted. I always had this power with me. And I made meanings of things as a child. Like children are so, in the stories we make up of as children of things that happen, um, it's amazing, really. I think as we get old, now that I have a child and going back looking, God, probably a million things I said during his childhood that he's probably made some big meaning out that I won't even remember. But that's the way that we do it, that we internalize things. And so it's just being able to let those go and kind of start over on a more even keel of knowing that we're safe and we're loved and we're guided and we have everything, and we can let the stories we made up were to keep us safe and we don't need them anymore.
I can so relate to the my inner child was also very sad. Like we're mostly sad and alone and scared, and but I love that you brought the playfulness and joy that comes alive when these healings unfold and the child is feels safe to be seen and heard, and the the closure starts to open up, the ice starts to melt, and what comes up and what becomes more alive is the joy and the playfulness and the innocence that we all have, that it's our essence. And I would love to hear about how joy and that like childlike innocence and playfulness is beginning to express itself for you, like with your music or however way that you might be noticing that that sad child slowly beginning to come alive and come and play a little bit.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been having these conversations with women lately about the time before the time before we started comparing ourselves or judging ourselves based on what we need to look a certain way or whatever. Like that time before that, when everything was just fun. And to me, like last summer, where we're living now, we have a swimming pool. And so last summer, like when I went in the pool and I was like, when I was little and I used to go swimming, like I used to like to do somersaults and handstands. And so I just started doing that. And it was just like playing like a little kid in the pool again. And if I feel like I would love this idea of like these women coming together and just playing. Like, let's just do somersaults in the pool and like lay on the grass and look up at the sky and roll down hills. I used to love to roll down hills. Now I haven't done that. I kind of scared that I might hurt myself. I have to find a hill, but but that's something that I love to do as a child, just roll down the hill. And I think it's like letting that exploration and that play out. Yeah, and dancing and singing and just really without worrying about what anybody thinks. I think that's the main. And we shut down our play because we're so worried about how we look and how other people are going to perceive it, or if we're singing or something, is it good enough, or and so that all like kind of puts a damper on the play. We're not just expressing ourselves.
I love this so much. I would totally join you in rolling down the hill,
Yeah,
although
I know. We have to make like a big retreat, just like
yeah,
just
make a
come
big
play.
retreat, come and play, roll down the hill and do somersaults in the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think playing is so healing, and I'm I'm intending that more and more of us would begin to realize that the power of playing, the power of playing just sounds like, the ego hijacking the idea and trying to make it this like big thing. But yeah, I've climbed up jungle gyms in the park when no one's looking, but just like there are no kids playing, so I'll just like climb up the jungle gym, like, wow, this is such a um full body tactile, physical, kinesiologic experience of just climbing up the ladder on the jungle gym and going
Yeah.
down the slide, right? It's like a full body experience, and you have to be present in your body because otherwise you can't do that. You can't even do those actions. And just being in the moment. Playing is about being in the moment, right? And
Yeah.
not worrying about what others are thinking or how you look or doing it right.
Yeah.
I think just so freeing. And I think that if as a society we could allow more of that even as an adult, because there's this another story idea belief that playing is for kids and not for adults, but we're all just kids in a grown-up body. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think playing is so healing.
Yeah. And there's just this sense of freedom because when we look at those things, like the things that I used to like to do as a child, like doing somersaults in the pool or rolling down the hill, those are all very like there's those moments you have no control. Like you're in the middle of the somersault or you're rolling down, like you're out of control. You're completely just kind of in this free form state. And yeah, like how often do we let ourselves be that in our normal life where we're just completely um not we can't even control the situation and think that that's a good thing. Like there are times in our lives when we can't control the situation and we don't usually like it. It's not the same thing as doing a somersault in the pool, but just letting it go and that floating, flying, out of control feeling.
Yeah, oh,
Mhm.
that's so good. I didn't think about that, but that's so true. It's like why some people love like roller coasters and
Yeah.
and jumping off planes with a parachute or yeah. Do you have any suggestions for um, anyone who's feeling stuck in their life or a job or situation? And what what can someone do when they're in the midst of that stuckness that
Mhm.
might be helpful for them to start shifting things a little bit?
Yeah, for me, it was really like in my job, for example, which was a place that I felt like really super stuck, um, starting to do what I could as far as wanting even if it's just I'm just going to say hi to every person that walks by me this morning. Like I'm going to start bringing the joy myself, um and then seeing what happens. So I was doing that for a while, and I would see incredible things. I would see people, after I would say hi to them, then they would go and have a nice conversation or hug somebody or say hello to somebody that they normally wouldn't. And so it was like, okay, I can make a difference here. Like, even just saying hi to everybody every morning, it's like lifting the vibe of the place. Um, so starting there, just starting the simplest things to kind of put like, this is why I'm here now. Like, I'm not here. I had to like I'm not in my this job that I come to every day and I do this paperwork, and I don't really care about any of this stuff. It doesn't excite me. But now I'm here for my awakening. Like now I'm here because I have all these people, all these relationships, and most of them I had known for like 30 years. So, they're like real relationships with their own stories and their own drama. And it's like, okay, now I'm here to be more conscious of how I'm going through my day and how I'm relating to these people and what is the lessons for me here. And it's not about the work anymore. It's not about like this is an important work or whatever. Now it's about how could I bring joy and more peace here while I'm here? And then what I found was that things started to open up. Um, I decided, like, okay, how can we have more of a community? And so it was one Christmas, and like, let's do a cookie exchange. And so everybody brought cookies, and it was this really fun experience that we hadn't done before. And soon after that, there was somebody who came and joined the company that I still think of him as, Holy Spirit sent him. It was just for the, it was like, came to the company, was like, okay, we're going to do these lunch and learn seminars now, and everybody in the company is going to teach. And for me, that was like, okay, like, because this is what I want to do. And I had worked at this company for 30 years. We've never done anything like it was like all of a sudden now I didn't know I was preparing to leave. But in the last year or so I was there were these opportunities to show up as something else and to bring more of myself and to share more of myself. Um, and so just looking at what can you do, and then because I was still like, I didn't know how it was going to happen. I still really couldn't see how I was ever going to be able to leave. It was like a big mountain of limitation and can'ts and all the reasons. Um, but I knew I wanted to. And having one day, I just decided, today, I'm going to, every time I go into my office door, from the hallway, I'm going to open the door and I'm going to visualize that I'm opening the door to go in and give my notice. And I literally, like, I was supposed to do it the whole day. My intention was to do it the whole day. I think I remembered like twice to have this visualization as I opened the door. And then I completely forgot about it until it was probably like 2 weeks later that I actually went and gave my notice, which was completely unexpected. And And then afterwards, I was like, oh my God, wait, I had done that vision. Like, I can't believe how fast that worked. Um, but, things started moving and things started shifting. And then it came to the point where it's just like, I have to have it. This felt like the time, like talking about like inner guidance. And because it had been years, I had been asking, like, when am I gonna be able to do this? When? And it was always like, no answer, or not now, smile at people instead. This is what you can do. Like I was saying, like you can work on this and work on that. And but then when it happened, it was like, oh, I can, all of a sudden, like that whole mountain of can'ts wasn't there anymore. I was just like, how come I didn't see this before? I totally can do this, and I'm gonna do it today so I don't chicken out. Um, but that had worked out. It's like I felt again, like I recognized, like, this is the moment. Like I felt swept up in it. Like, okay, I'm in the flow and this is where it's going. But I think it did start with that being able to do whatever I could do and to say, okay, I'm going to use this experience that I don't like as my opportunity to heal.
I love this so much. It goes back to what you said earlier about not being a victim of the world you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you said too about focusing on what you can do now and being a presence of love for other people who are there. Because, like, so much of the unhappiness that we experience in the workplace, I think, is disconnect for feeling disconnected from our coworkers, our bosses, or ourselves, really.
Yeah.
And when you open your heart and decide that you're going to say hi to everybody, like what you witnessed with the person you said hi to, then passing that love on to somebody else, it's like has a rippling effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. Where can people find you?
So my website, which is nicolewitt.co. And yeah, the newsletters on there. I have a women's ACIM Course in Miracle Study group, first Saturday in the month. So the sign-up's on there. And yeah, that's basically I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all those places, but you can get there from the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Oh, I so love this conversation. And I'll say a prayer to close.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I'm taking a breath of love and gratitude. Thank you so much, Nicole, for anchoring us in this lightness and joy of loving and accepting ourselves and letting go of the people pleasing and the false identities and all the stories that we told about ourselves of I can't, and just loving ourselves more fully and remembering that there is a loving presence that's always present in our lives. And when we really become still and look back on our lives, we can identify those moments when we were guided, we were uplifted, we were blessed with something that we couldn't have made happen ourselves. And that presence that loves us and knows exactly what to do always is always here for us. And we can just simply turn to it by becoming still and listening. I'm so grateful that we are able to always choose to tell a different story, a new story about ourselves and what we're experiencing, and choose to be a presence of love for others and anyone who's in our surroundings that we come across in our day-to-day lives. And that even if we are feeling so stuck, there is something that we could do, something we can choose. And that guidance always comes at perfect timing. And even if we miss it, it always comes again. There is no right or wrong. We are always being held and we're being guided. So I say thank you to that. I let it be. We're blessed, we're guided, and so it is. Amen.
Amen. Hmm.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. And I'll just mention, so it's 50, I have the link that I'm giving you for 50% off of the Accessing Inner Wisdom counseling session, which is one when we go in, the one that I said that Jesus raised his hand that wanted to, the experience that I had. So it's a really great experience. You can find the info on my website about what it is.
Awesome.
So,
Yes. So I'll put the link in the show notes for the special
yeah,
discount for our listeners for the Accessing Inner Wisdom session with Nicole.
yeah,
I
sounds good. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to come check out our Substack at whenwearehealed.com, where you can subscribe to keep in touch and get show notes emailed to you. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you in the next episode